Well, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon to all. Thank you for joining us in this showcase today presented by Intelsat. My name is Gabriela Lago, and I am responsible for regulatory affairs for Intelsat. Before we get started, let me just make a few logistics announcements. Apologies, our intention was to hold this session mostly in Spanish, but given some translation restrictions, we can only do it in one language, so English it is for all. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat. You can ask the questions in Spanish, and I will translate them as necessary. Otherwise, if you have any other specific questions or when you miss any information or have any specific requirement, please send me an email to gabriela.lago@intelsat.com. You will also have the email address on the chat. We will get back to you as soon as possible. Next slide, please. The objective of this showcase is to share with you a few of the services that Intelsat provides to Latin America today, some of which we have been providing for decades. And these services have been key for the development in the region. As you can see, we divided the presentation into 3 key sessions. The first one, some of the services that you have already heard about many times, media and broadcast satellite services, but we do not really talk much about them lately. Richard Colwick, who has been working in this industry for over 25 years, will tell us why they are still relevant for Latin America. Then we will jump ahead into what air mobility services will bring to the region in the next few years. Frederick Van Essen, also with over 25 years of knowledge of airlines and communications, will share with us the experience in other regions that will be key lessons learned for Latin America and the Caribbean as the region gears up for an explosion of demand. As these services become more affordable for local airlines and who will actually be needing them very much as they try to emerge from the economic crisis that has been accelerated by the coronavirus. And last but not for that reason the least important, Richard will also tell us more about satellite and network services being provided in the region that have been instrumental in closing the digital divide. We will also briefly touch on licensing issues, and again, for questions, make sure you write them in the chat. Next slide, please. I'm going to take 2 minutes to go over a little bit of the history of Intelsat, although many of you have already heard about it, or maybe not all of them, not everybody knows it. Some of the details on what's behind this company today. Intelsat was created in 1964 with a mandate to bring satellite communications to the world. That was the first attempt to bridge the divide in the world with satellite communications. As such, Intelsat has had many firsts, from launching the first satellite called Early Bird in 1965 to transmitting the first images of the moon to the world in 1969 and to the first voice and data call from a boat in 1974, as well as transmitting the first international high-definition transition. There have been many more firsts in between, to the latest one that took place earlier this year, which is the Mission Extension Vehicle, which made history as the first in-orbit docking with one of our satellites, Intelsat 901, with this Northrop Grumman's MEV. The MEV extends the life of a satellite by providing its fuel and jets to manage the satellite, but we can talk more about that in future sessions. Intelsat was created as an international consortium, but it was privatized in 2001. Later, Intelsat acquired PanAmSat in 2006, which brought in an additional wealth of knowledge and expertise in the region, in Latin America in particular. Main business of Intelsat originally was international voice traffic and data capacity, mostly in the C and KU bands. Today, Intelsat has over 1,200 employees with presence and offices in every single continent. Over its history, over 130 satellites launched, 53 of which are in orbit today. 26 of these satellites are over North America, Central America, and the Caribbean, and 11 of these satellites over South America. We are very proud to say that we have coverage over 99% of all populated areas in the world. Moving forward in the future, Intelsat is poised to take advantage of more technologies, new technologies, to achieve more efficiencies and better cost efficiencies too. We have evolved from traditional satellites to high throughput satellites and to now software-defined satellites that will be operational in 2022. We have also transitioned to an open architecture, which allows us to interact with other technologies, and we will hear more about it later. One of the future technologies that Intelsat is exploring today is HAPS, high altitude platforms, that have been widely discussed over the last WRC and will continue to be a matter of discussion in this cycle. So innovation and adapting to the reality and the needs of the market has been, in the forefront of Intelsat. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to stay alive and still stay relevant after almost 6 decades. Well, with that, I will leave you with Richard, who will now tell us a little bit about media services. Richard, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gabriela. Good morning to the audience as well, and thank you for joining us. Intelsat's media business, next slide please, represents about 45% of the company's global revenues. In Latin America, we have a long legacy of providing services for the region for multiple verticals of the media business. One of the most important and traditional deliveries that we've focused over the years is the program distribution into cable systems, where we have the services of big media companies, big media conglomerates like HBO, Discovery, Viacom, Disney, Turner, etc. They distribute hundreds of channels to thousands of cable systems throughout the Americas. This is a traditional distribution of linear television that has been in existence for many years, and we foresee continuing for the foreseeable future. Another aspect of the services we provide, or the satellite capacity that we address, is for the distribution of local networks. These are in-country broadcast networks, national networks that distribute their content to terrestrial repeaters throughout the whole country to extend the coverage of the television channels into each of the Latin American countries. The direct-to-home vertical is a very important vertical for Intelsat in Latin America, as we are currently providing services for players like DirecTV throughout Latin America, Sky Mexico in Mexico, and Sky Brazil, and also Telefónica Brazil. These represent millions of antennas that are today looking at Intelsat satellites, delivering programming to the end user throughout the whole continent. Video contributions is an important segment as well for us, because we offer capacity for the contribution of sporting events. Every time there's a soccer game, every time the Olympics happen, or any other World Cup event, the satellite capacity is used to bring the content to the distribution centers, which will later provide the production of the sporting events to millions of users. The managed media service is also a very important component of what we're doing in the region, which Intelsat, through the summation of our teleport services, our space assets, and our vast fiber infrastructure, we're able to provide a one-stop shopping for the distribution and the aggregation of content on a managed platform by Intelsat, in which programmers will give us their content and Intelsat distributes it via fiber, via satellite, or via IP technology. Next slide, please. So in Latin America, Intelsat has a long history of established video neighborhoods. What is a video neighborhood? A video neighborhood is basically a space asset where you have anchor programmers that are driving the cable head-end reception of a specific satellite driven by important programmers. So, for example, if you have a spacecraft that is carrying programming from the big media companies, well, every other programmer that jumps on that satellite will be able to be received by the same cable companies that are receiving content for big media companies. So this represents a value to the programmer, because the cost per reaching each subscriber is really very economical, especially when you are reaching thousands and thousands of cable systems. In the region, we have 4 neighborhoods. We have Intelsat 21, located at 58 degrees west, a highly penetrated, highly coveted media distribution satellite. Intelsat 34, located a few degrees away at 55.5 location, also carries content from big media companies and provides capacity also for numerous local broadcasters. Intelsat 14 is a cable neighborhood in several countries. It's been expanded to increase its cable headend access in an important market like Brazil. Intelsat 11, a legacy position at 43 degrees west, also carries a significant number of content. So what's happening in the region today? We are seeing some consolidation in the market because the big media companies are actually being consolidated with other ones. We are seeing consolidations of the likes of Disney and Fox, Viacom, CBS, Discovery Scripps, AT&T, and Time Warner. So this consolidation is driving basically more efficiencies in the amount of capacity being used. It's also triggering technology upgrades. Programmers are upgrading to HEVC. They're trying to make more efficient use of the spectrum and pump more megabits through the megahertz that they have contracted. Traditionally, linear programming is what most of the television today, for the most part, is going into cable systems. We don't see linear programming as going away. We think it's going to continue for the many years to come, as we have changing habits in the way consumers are watching television, especially the younger consumers. We understand that, there are new online platforms being launched, new ways of watching content, and maybe this will be driven by specific content which will be going into specific platforms. But we don't see the linear channels going away at least for the foreseeable future, for at least more than 10 years. One of the aspects that programmers are actually embracing is the fact that they are with the OTT services, the non-linear services, like Disney Plus, like Netflix. They're going direct to consumers. So this is opening a new revenue stream for them, where they're trying to capitalize on reaching consumers in different ways. Linear television still represents a big portion of the revenues that programmers generate, which in itself is another reason why we don't think linear television is going to go away for a while. One of the factors affecting the adoption of nonlinear services, OTT services, online content distribution, it's really the capillarity of the broadband services in each country. Today we have usually the big cities have a good broadband capillarity, but once you get into rural areas, into areas that are more remotely located, then that broadband access is very challenging, and it's very difficult to reach more consumers this way. So I think that's also going to be an important factor in a long-term transition to an online-only medium for watching televisions. One of the issues that we have been hearing recently is the spectrum clearance for 5G. Unlike the United States, where you have one government and basically one regulatory agency and very few satellite operators, Latin America is a very challenging environment. Challenging environment because there's no general consensus on what is the spectrum that is going to be used for 5G implementation. You have different countries that are looking at different subset of frequencies, and each country has its own economical and political interests. One of the challenges for the programmers is if you are a programmer with a pan-regional distribution of content, If you start seeing that single countries start adopting different standards for the spectrum, for 5G clearance, for example, the biggest challenge for a programmer who reaches today thousands and thousands of antennas is going to be, how do I create content specifically for each country that I'm not allowed to be receiving a certain frequency? So that in itself is a big challenge for the media industry today. And it's going to definitely be an important factor to consider when deciding on how to really allocate in a very responsible way any spectrum for the implementation of 5G. Today, television, especially now with the COVID situation, television was essential. Television and radio was essential in communicating with the people regarding procedure, regarding pandemic information, and in anything that can affect the distribution of the widespread over-the-air television through each of our countries should be taken serious consideration before any decisions are made that can affect this valuable spectrum. Thank you, Gabriela. That's all I have for media for now. Back to you.
Thank you, Richard. That was very interesting. And I just want to reiterate the fact that there are millions of receive-only antennas in C-band in the region that are key for the distribution of television and broadcast. And these antennas are not registered today. We are not aware of where they are located or how many they are. Similar to what was done in the US, once the C-band transition was decided, Intelsat is starting to work with local partners and customers, our own customers, to identify as many of these antennas as possible so that we can share that information with all the regulators. This information will be key in the understanding the depth and of the implementation and the use of C-band in each country. So stay tuned. We will be reaching out to all of you in the future, in the next few months, and trying to get this information to everybody. But Richard, one more question. You know, what have been the most recent developments in 2020 for broadcast in general? Mm-hmm.
Well, in the terms of broadcast for Intelsat, it's basically the launch of Galaxy 30 for North America. It's a new satellite, a very powerful satellite that is going to be able to provide a long-term continuity for the U.S. programmers as we embrace the clearance of the 5G. So this is part of our replacement fleet for North America. And the satellite will be entering service really shortly. And it's the first of many Galaxy satellites for the North American market to be able to accommodate the new normal of the less bandwidth for North America. Another aspect which I think is very important to consider is in early March, I believe this year, there was a failure of the Simón Bolívar satellite. And that left thousands and thousands of users in Venezuela without television service. Intelsat, luckily, was well positioned to provide restoration services for the media services of that satellite, using 4 of our satellites, because there was not only the C-band distribution into cable systems, but it was also Ku-band for direct-to-home services, and also additional capacity for contribution of news events. So that flexibility, as far as being able to allocate the services in any frequencies that were available, was important. It was very important to quickly restore services for the Venezuelan viewers.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Richard. Very, very interesting and very exciting times ahead. Yeah. One thing you mentioned, coronavirus and what has been done with satellites this year, and that reminds me of the solution that the Mexican government implemented after shutting down schools because of the pandemic earlier this year. Within a few weeks, they were starting to broadcast education and classes over satellite TV using satellite capacity to hundreds and thousands of schools or over television. So, although we are looking into the future and what's coming up, television still, it's a solution that will help us get through emergencies and hard times as we are going through right now. So next slide, please. And with that, we will move on to aero mobility services and what we should be expecting in Latin America in the upcoming years. Frederick, please. You're on mute, Frederick, I think.
Is this better?
You're good.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Thank you, Gabriela. Yeah, aero mobility is one of Intelsat's fastest growing businesses. To make it simple, it's just in-flight internet for airlines, for business jets and helicopters. And in recent years, innovation has led to broadband internet being available on aircraft worldwide, and speeds of 100 megabits per second are no exception these days. In-flight internet is sort of a strange thing for airlines and for aviation. Many aircraft have still been offline as soon as the aircraft door closed, but it's now rapidly becoming essential to aero. Airbus actually expects that from 2030 onwards, all new aircraft leaving the factory will be connected. Now, it's a growth area because passengers, on the one hand, are increasingly demanding in-flight internet. They're expecting to be connected. And actually, operators have seen that during the COVID crisis already, the usage of internet and the need for people to be connected when they're traveling actually has gone up a lot. At the same time, you can enable all kinds of connected services to help the airline run its operation more efficient and safer. And this is very much driven by a trend to digitalize airline operation. Clearly, the aviation industry has been severely hit today, but airlines are already starting to consider how they can restart and grow again post-COVID. And this will be one of the major drivers in that post-COVID recovery. That is important for the region because in turn, that recovery of the airlines and aviation in general supports 7 million jobs and 160 billion in GDP that is associated with travel and tourism in the region. London School of Economics has actually calculated that specifically in Latin America, aviation airline results can improve by over $2 billion in the next decade by using these connected services and offering in-flight internet to their passengers. Interestingly, in the Latin American region, aviation has and is expected to grow at rates that are above the global average. But when you then look at connected aircraft, especially when you compare this, for example, to the United States, where 77% of all aircraft are already connected today, in Latin America, this is still just 11%. So there is a huge opportunity in further digitalizing operations and services to passengers, and enabling in-flight internet is a key for that. Furthermore, one of the youngest fleets, airline fleets in the world, is within the LATAM region. And those are particularly the aircraft that are equipped with lots of sensors that have digital information and are most valuable in this respect to airlines. Intelsat currently serves 75% of all airlines. And this includes, for example, GOL, LATAM, and Aeromexico. We're one of the innovation leaders in the space. We have an ambitious roadmap, and we're working with aircraft manufacturers such as Embraer and local telcos to bring in-flight internet to a level where it actually helps the airlines move forward. Our ultimate ambition, I would say, is making sure that this is so affordable that all the airlines can offer this simply as part of their ticket price to passengers. Successful aero mobility services require that it's affordable, it's reliable, that you can use it in a frictionless way globally, that there are economies of scale, and that there is an open architecture so that you can actually use satellite capacity that is available around the world. And we see consolidation in the in-flight connectivity industry happening right now, and also as a necessary step to achieving this. And as such, we've recently taken a step to vertically integrate with one of the leaders in the service provisioning in this space called GoGo. Now let's move to the next slide. how does this work? And this might be slightly different than what you're used to in other areas. Basically, there's a terminal onboard the aircraft, called an eSIM within the regulatory environment, and it talks to satellites that are up in the sky, basically forming a global telecommunications network. Most of these aircraft use Ku-band frequencies to communicate with satellites. The satellites then bring it down to ground stations, which are connected using a fiber optic network that is spanning the globe to the local internet. And that's how traffic between aircraft and the internet is exchanged. Now that seems fairly obvious and relatively simple until you consider that this has to work with high-speed flying objects that move at speeds like 900 kilometers per hour through the air, through all kinds of weather. They're doing this in all kinds of climates where aircraft are parked in a desert environment, maybe take off and then rapidly change to temperatures of minus 50 degrees. Aircraft are fast maneuvering, and all the time these antennas on top of the aircraft need to track satellites and hand over between satellites as they're flying their routes. This is tricky to do, complex, and just to give you an idea, the terminals on board aircraft that are able to do this and manage to go through all the certifications necessary to do this safely on board an aircraft can cost upwards of $500,000 per aircraft. So these are sizable investments for airlines and helicopters and business jets and so on. Clearly, there's interesting new developments happening in the space of UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, drones that will be flying in the near future, also for longer distances, and will require satellite communications to be connected and to work. Some of the lessons learned are that when you fly, and I just mentioned it, you're crossing a lot of countries. So it's no use trying to just come up with regulatory regimes, frequencies to use just within one country. It would be way too difficult to get all the equipment working across all the countries that would be in the flight path. So the airline industry is really a globalized industry, which is very much standardized throughout the world. And it's of the utmost importance that countries try to follow the harmonized agreements that have been put in place, for example, by the ITU, and support standards. This is the only way we can actually enable airlines to start using this in a more ubiquitous way, and basically get Latin America to that level of 77% connected that the US is today. Maybe a notable highlight in that respect is Brazil, which has taken an approach which is very conducive to doing this, and in my view would be an example to follow. And also the European countries have taken a very supportive approach with simple letters of non-objection to make things work in the regulatory space. And I think that's sort of a good overview and introduction. So with that, back to you, Gabriela.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Frederick. Very interesting and so much to look forward to in the region. Time is flying away, so I'm going to jump into network services and back to Richard and to sharing how have cellular backup services and network services been instrumental in bridging the connectivity gap in the region?
Yeah, thank you, Gabriela. So actually, of the most prominent services that Intelsat provides in Latin America for non-media applications, definitely cellular backhaul, or CBH for short, is one of the most important ones, followed, of course, by VSAT Enterprise. On cellular backhaul, and the slides, please. On cellular backhaul, basically what we're doing is we're connecting the remote locations where fiber and microwave is not available back to the central network via satellite. Okay? CBH allows mobile operators to connect to rural and remote locations to voice and internet in a more affordable manner. Usually, one satellite antenna can provide services to multiple radio towers at the same time. So these services are quickly deployed, and you can actually have a quick-to-market solution much faster than waiting for fiber infrastructure to be provided. To provide these services, the MNOs or the mobile network operators have their own teleports, or they can also outsource the service to satellite operators. Right? It really depends on the regulatory environment of each country, whether the regulators allow the traffic to leave the country or not. Some countries don't allow it. Other countries are really transparent to that situation. When Intelsat provides the managed solution for the services, we are providing the hub, the teleport access, and the space segment. Okay? And then the mobile operator can really focus and direct resources on marketing, on capturing more users, on promoting more their own infrastructure. We have recently seen the adoption of different bands for the cellular backhaul services. I mean, usually we've been doing it in C-band, but lately there's been the use of KU and also KA band because it's offering some more cost-effective solution. Right? In remote locations, especially in the very areas of Latin America where rain fade is a problem, what Intelsat has introduced the use of our high-throughput satellites to improve the availability of the links. So we recently deployed our Intelsat Epic fleet of satellites, which are high-throughput satellites, which allows the end user, actually the MNO, to offer more bits per hertz in a more efficient manner. The high-throughput satellites are very flexible in terms of being able to combine different bands. They're open architecture. So a mobile operator can actually use C-band on the uplink up to the satellite and receiving KU band, or up in KU band and receiving C-band, or offer any other combination. This allows for a very flexible design of a network where the virtue of the Epic fleet of satellites can allow a mobile operator to really tailor the design of their service according to the limitations that weather or any other lack of terrestrial infrastructure can offer. The speed to market is very important with new deployments for mobile operators. In many cases, there are plans to build national fiber networks to more capillarity into the country, but that's going to take time. In the meantime, to be able to satisfy universal requirements and to deploy more into the rural areas and bridge the digital divide, what we are seeing is a great adoption of satellite backhaul services. Next slide, please. Yeah. So like I was saying before, one downlink antenna actually can feed several towers, several cell towers, several radio bases. And we have recently seen in the region several deals for us, in which we are offering a managed solution to these mobile operators, in which they are finding a way to optimize the use of the bandwidth on using very high quality of services and also a quality of experience for the user, extending the broadband access to communities that today are really underserved, and that satellite is the only way to really connect them right away. And also find a way in which the mobile operators can do it in a very efficient way. Because one of the challenges for the mobile operators is, how do I deploy in an economical way that doesn't really incur too much cost for deployment, and also provide me some good returns for my services. And satellite today is the only way to do it really fast and actually equip the market. Another vertical of our data services or network services is the use of VSATs. VSATs is a technology that allows the communication or the connectivity between enterprises. So today we provide services to service providers that are offering connectivity to retail, to corporate networks, and also to governments. And these services provide a very efficient and fast connectivity solution for banking, for retail transactions, and even for education. Today we have services that we have recently adopted where we convert megahertz into megabits, and we offer a turnkey solution. We have the ability of selling packages of megabits directly to end users. We have actually active services in Colombia that we recently deployed, Brazil, Argentina, and Peru as well, where we provide the bandwidth, the space segment asset, and we provide also a cost-effective solution, including the remotes and all the equipment necessary for the connectivity of all the different sites. The local partners, for example, in the case of Colombia, who are also network operators, are also providing better readiness because by being in the market, they have a better know-how of the regulatory situation. They have a better know-how of the resources needed, and they're able to provide a quick solution for the needs that may be coming up on the requirements. Backup is also an important component of the satellite services. Some companies today that are using terrestrial or microwave to connect to their radio towers, to the base towers back to the networks, are doing it by fiber or microwave. Sometimes fiber gets cut and microwave gets interrupted. By having a satellite solution available, then you can quickly restore the services. I mean, we've seen outages throughout many countries throughout the history of the services, and satellite has been the only solution to quickly restore services to millions of end users in the region. This solution can be normally provided by us directly to the service provider, or the service provider in themselves have backup solutions that they contract with Intelsat. One of the biggest challenges, I believe, for expanding CBH in the region is, and depends on how aggressive the mobile network operator wants to grow their subscriber base. And also how aggressive they face the 5G challenges in regards to their CapEx allocation. Some statistical data has shown us that the penetration on data users and 5G are going to demand tremendous resources for the CBH and also more satellite capacity for the service. We believe that about 57 million new subscribers in that time by 2025 for mobile services. Mobile data should be reaching levels of 5 times the growth that we see today, and about 67% of 4G and 7% really of 5G by 2025. So there is a lot to be still to be done on the deployment of infrastructure and the ability to bridge the digital divide in many of our countries, in many of the region. There's still a tremendous number of underserved communities that we need to bring online. And the only way to do it really is for a good cooperation between the regulatory entities, the service providers, and the satellite community. And that's what I have, Gabby. Back to you.
Thank you, Richard. Very interesting. Thank you, Frederick, too, for this great summary of the services that have been and will continue to be and will be, in the case of Aero Services, very key for the Latin American economies. I'm going to take a couple of minutes over in the next slide to discuss just a couple of key elements in terms of licensing and spectrum use in the region. Either for all the new services, licensing and spectrum are the elements that define whether a solution will work or not in a country. No matter how much innovation and how many efforts operators, be it mobile, fixed, or satellite operators, put into making new technology affordable to get closer to the citizens and close the digital divide, if the fees are too high, then affordability goes down the drain. We all need to cover our costs, definitely, but licensing and spectrum fees should not be considered an income source, which it's a message that has been repeated over and over again. Other things that we have encountered in the region is sometimes, the requirement of having a local entity. Satellite operators, by definition, are global or regional, and sometimes having an entity, a formal corporation in each country, creates a significant increase in expenses and liabilities. Another one that has also, in many cases, and I'm sure it's not only in the case for Intelsat, but also for many other satellite operators, is the requirement of having a local teleport, a local hub. Given that, as I was saying, the nature of satellite operators were regional, so it's impossible to have a hub or a big teleport in each country. This would make the services very expensive, and in order to bridge the digital divide, we know that affordability is one of the key elements. When applying for licenses, also sometimes we're talking 9 months, a year to obtain a license. And the sooner, if we can streamline these processes, it'll be easier to get the services faster to each country. And from an aero perspective, as Frederick was saying, I think that the key elements are making sure that the foreign registered aircrafts that are transiting to or over a country are not required to obtain a specific authorization or for temporary use of frequency licenses, or any other license in general when just passing over. Additionally, the certification or licensing of the air stations and all related equipment on board of the aircraft that is already granted in the country of origin should be sufficient in all countries. And also, of course, frequency harmonization, which is key as the aircrafts traverse the region and different countries. There are many resources that we're happy to share with you, from CITEL and the recommendation 58 on KU ban eSIMs to the ECC recommendations in the European Union, as well as the important agenda item 1.15 for WRC for this 23 in this cycle. So that was a very quick summary of licensing. We had a question, and it's for you, Richard. And I think it's important to address this. How do you see the future of broadcast, radio, TV industry with future generations' preference with streaming and different kind of OTT solutions?
Yeah, so I think non-linear distribution for entertainment with different business models, mainly subscription video on demand and advertising video on demand, is going to continue to increase as the consumer habits are changing. People want more immediacy in the content, is whenever they want to watch it, whatever they want to watch it, and wherever they are. So technology has enabled that to happen, and we're seeing that now. Programmers are going direct, getting new source of revenue, different than the traditional distribution. I believe sporting events will continue to exist in a traditional way in the linear channels. There will be, some over or offload of it on non-linear, but for the most part, thousands and thousands and millions of viewers are still watching TV and soccer games in a traditional way. News is probably going to move more up to online as you get immediate content access and you can interact with social networks. Video to the edge, video to the tower, where the MNOs will take a bigger presence in the media ecosystem, is going to be big, because if you can dump or distribute the content directly to the tower on a server on a cell tower and decongest the network so that end users can directly access cached video from the network on their cell phone, it's going to be big, as you can actually direct content everywhere you want to do. I believe in adding to Frederick's presentation, global live television of in-flight and maritime is gonna go big in a bigger scale. Once every single passenger jet is equipped with access to satellite capacity, then you'll have the same kind of experience of broadband and television like if you're in your house. And that being enabled, obviously, by a company like us with a purchase of a company like Google.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. We're almost out of time. 30 seconds, final thought, Frederick.
Yeah, maybe coming back to what you mentioned before, I think as a global operator, we have a ton of experience in how things work around the world. We're happy to share that, help local regulators with that experience. So please reach out and we can help you.
Okay, thank you. Richard, 10 seconds.
Keep watching television. Television is important for us. We have millions and millions of receive sites throughout the whole region, not only in the regular direct-to-home, but also in the C-band. The satellite networks are prominent. We have millions of links. We need to continue with this capacity and providing the service to the end users. We need to expand the reach into communities that today are not being connected to basic services. So we need for the governments and regulators to take that into account and to create a balance, a right balance of existing technology, existing spectrum, and possibilities for the future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So yeah, you said television is important. Yes, definitely important for those who are today unconnected, who have no access to connectivity, and was the only way they can get some information from the outside world. Satellite industry has been around for almost 6 decades, and it will be around for at least another 6 decades. So let's keep that in mind. Let's make sure we don't break what is already working, and just to serve future benefits that are definitely a requirement, but we still need to safeguard the needs of those who don't have anything, don't have no connectivity at all today. We're ready to work with all the operators. Let's continue with this collaborative approach. Let's make sure we have information we want to share with you. We hope that all the information we provided today will raise more questions in your mind, and we open the dialogue for more in-depth discussions with Intelsat and with all the other operators. Our contact information is on the last slide. And thank you for joining us today. Looking forward to seeing you in person, hopefully soon, and talking to you very soon. Have a great weekend. Thank you for joining us today.